years ago I did a table that had 4 drawers on each side, 2 on the ends. And I thought I'd conceived something that had not ever been done before. And we were hiking up in the Zuni Mountains, which was quite rough, and went to a cabin and opened the door, and there was a table with 4 drawers, it had 2 drawers on the sides and 1 at either end. And I thought, my goodness, this was done, 100 years ago. And so when you think that you've done something that no one else has done, I just think that there really isn't anything new. The rocking chair, for example, I've been told that it's an improvement on the old Boston rocker, but I didn't even have the Boston rocker in mind. I just wanted to make a rocking chair, and I did it. And for example, here, on this chair, I don't know if you can see this beautiful little line here. Aesthetically, I like very, very much, but it also strengthens this part of the chair. And but a lot of little ideas come to me, like here again on this chair, this little crest here is like a little wave. Well, then what I did the same thing here. See, I followed it through there. I was at this lumber yard and I saw these 2 pieces of wood. I said, "Are they for sale?" And he said, "Yes." It was Brazilian road. I said, "Fine." So I paid him for them. Then he said, "I had somebody came by to see them. It's building a new house. They want to buy them." And I said, "They're not for sale though. I paid you for them, they're mine." He says, "Yeah, but wait till I tell you who they're for." And I said, "I don't care who they're for." I said, "I don't want to sell them." And he says, "But it's Brad Pitt." And I said, "Who in the hell is Brad Pitt?" He says, "You don't know Brad Pitt, the movie star?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I've heard of him." And I said, "But tell him they're not for sale." It's kind of, nutty, me buying all this wood, but the boys will be able to work on it for years.
I came to work here for Sam when I was 22.
I was 19.
I was 19 when I came to work for Sam.
I was in the shop and I looked out and I saw this young man with his head hung low walking up the driveway, and it was Larry.
He made it very clear to me it was only for the summer. And I said that was fine. It was interesting work, but we hit it off right away.
And then I met Mike in a shopping center.
I had heard Sam speak and I knew who he was, and I recognized him. And so when we saw him there in the mall, I was rather excited to see him in public.
I invited him to come to see me and I liked him, so I hired him the very next day. And then David was in school with Rebecca.
I had some oak material under my desk in geometry class, and she was asking, "What are you doing with all this wood?" And I told her. She said, "Well, you had to meet my grandfather. He's a woodworker." I thought, okay, check it out.
They're like my children, really. I'm not the employer and they're the workers. We all work together. Or I still do the designing. I still put everything together, and I'll just say, "Well, Larry, would you work on this piece? Mike work on that one. David work on that." But then the 3 of them get together and kind of know what they have to do.
The way Sam works, he brings in, say, the 8-quart for the seats. Then we lay it out for Sam, and he lays out the lengths he wants and the number of pieces, and then Mike will help him with the initial cuts, because the boards some of them are 12 feet long, and he cuts them on the bandsaw. So we go through that and we cut out all these blanks, and then Sam mills them, runs them through the planer and the joiner, and mills them all to size. And then he starts kind of orchestrating the grain pattern for each seat. There's a general width for a rocking chair within an inch. And so as he's picking out wood, he may have a piece that has a little knot on it that he doesn't want showing in the surface, so he'll cut that out so that each seat is its own width. They're all individually made. They're not like a production shop. And I think some people don't understand that even though he may do 6 at a time, every one of them is different. And so he'll lay the seats out, and he goes through a process of pre-cutting them, cutting the joints so they get the nice curve that he has in them. Then those seat blanks go into Dave.
What Sam will do is he'll take 5 pieces of wood, and he'll cut the angles on them, And there's a 5 degree on the rocking chairs, I believe, and a 3 degree on this seat, and that's what gives it its shape here. It's not flat on the bottom. It actually will be rounded here and then come up, and just gives it a nice swooping shape. So Sam will glue this together, and before he glues it together, they typically look like this. And then he'll take it to the bandsaw like he does, and he'll freehand, and he'll cut out some of the excess material before I get it. And that's what you see here, and this is all done on the bandsaw. And that just saves a little bit of time when I go in with a grinder and shape it by hand. And I asked him when I first started, I said, well, what happens if I ruin one? And he says,
Well, you probably ruin 3 or 4 or 5 of them, but you're not going to learn unless you do it. And so when I give this to David, I've cut this out for the leg, I've cut this out for the leg and this, and then this is all in the rough. I cut this out on the bandsaw, I cut this out on the bandsaw, that on the bandsaw, that on the bandsaw. Then he takes a disc sander and sands all these out like this.
and then I'll come in with some finer grits. I'll take the body grinder and remove some more wood. I'll have to shape the back here and get a curve into the back, and I turn it over. I'll do the bottom, and then I'll finish it off with just a 2-inch grinder, and I just kind of freehand it and try to get as close to the line as I can, and just bring it around.
And they go to Sam, and in the meantime, he's started cutting out legs. He'll cut the back legs out first.
People have asked, well, do you spend a lot of time drawing and all that? I don't. These are all mental drawings that I have in my head, and I have thousands of them that I want to do.
He routes those and fits the joinery and starts gluing the back legs on.
Then you see how that goes together. It's a real good lock joint. And the process of making a chair, I can go from scratch. For example, here I'm going to cut these out in a few minutes. Those are for a rocking chair, but I can pretty much assemble a chair in a couple of days, or a rocking chair. But then it takes 2-3 weeks of shaping and sanding.
The whole process, if we were to run straight through, depending on the wood, may take 3 to 3.5 weeks. We have so many pieces going at one time that rarely do we take one piece just straight through. We're always jumping around from piece to piece.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And there's one way. I have 12 pieces now that I'm working on all at one time. I'll work on this, then I go to something else.
He's making individual pieces. They're not production. And he's getting up and down all day long. He's getting a lot of exercise. He's getting a lot of movement, and he's not getting bored. I get bored because I do, after 10 of those, I'm bored. He's not.
I still design everything, and I put everything together, and then they carry on from there. In fact, like, say I'll give them this chair here, and it's pretty much rough shaped, and they'll go ahead and do all the finishing work on it, which is really very difficult.
Probably what I would do at this point is turn it on its side and start shaping these front legs to where they blend into the seat. And so it's just a matter of removing a lot of material and continually looking at the form to make sure that it flows properly.
Then they go back to Sam, and they get arms put on.
This fits in here like that. There, you see there, it's a perfect fit. Sometimes I luck out.
Then they come back to us, and we shape all the arms, the front legs, and all of that, and do some pre-sanding. And then we usually lay, if it's a rocking chair, we'll lay out the spindle holes and get it ready for the back, which he will make next. It's not about sitting down and designing something. It's about receiving something and reacting to things, and I think that's his genius.
I think God gives us all a gift, and some of us use these talents, and some of us do not. And I've been fortunate that I've made my living at something I love to do. has to fit perfectly, and then the spindles go in.
So we'll do some shaping on this, sanding, refine this whole form here so that when the spindles are in it, we don't have to do much work around the spindles.
And then we take it back, and usually Mike and I will cut the spindles out, shape those. That takes about a half a day to do a set of spindles and get it ready to put in the chair.
What we do is make spindles out of 6/4, that's 1.5 inches, and then we bring them down after we plane them, and we'll put them into groups like this, and you'll see some there. I don't, everything that I've cut out aren't spare parts. They are an order that I have to get to. So these will go probably on this rocking chair here. I don't think you can see it, but this is where they go right here. I have the holes marked, and these will go in.
After we glue them in, we turn the chair on its back, then we can sight. I can sight through here and look at the plane of the spindles, and then we go back in and shape those so it's just a beautifully continuous line through there. And at that point, it goes back to Sam, and he puts the rockers on.
And when I put the rocker on, I have to pull the back leg in, so very careful with a clamp. I pull it in just slightly. Then there's a point on the dowel for the front, and then I say a little prayer and I smack it one, and it slips right in.
We bring it back in here, and then we shape the rocker joints and start the final sanding. So you can see that the chair is really traveling, you know, all the time.
So this one's ready for a coat of oil now. We gave it a coat this morning, and now this afternoon we can give it another coat. What we do is put it on very liberally, like I'm doing here, just kind of slop it on over the entire piece, and then let it sit for maybe just a couple minutes. And then the most important part of the whole process is just wiping it off as thoroughly as possible. I've always felt like the oiling of the pieces is kind of the reward of all the hours of working on them, because you get a chance to really see the clarity of the grain, and you know, even though, you know, the pieces are beautiful for years and they actually gain a patina over time, you know, with the just the age of the piece and the people touching them. I always figured, you know, they're really not going to look any better than they do right now, so I get to see it that way.
I used to have decals, and then I decided to do it this way better. And what I do here, I put the initials of each of the boys that works with me. I put all their initials on everything that I make.
Sam likes to have these sit around for a week or so, a few days, so he can kind of absorb it, I think. And he also likes to photograph them, of course. I don't know if you can if you can see that grain come up, but the reflection might be too. Well, there it is.
I want a chair to be very beautiful. I want a chair that is good to the eye, and I want a chair above all that is comfortable. A chair should invite you to sit. It has to give you good back support. I've had people say that my furniture is art, that it's sculpture, it's this and that, but I really don't care what they call it, as long as I'm happy with what it is. This is Larry White, and Larry was my very first employee. But this little chair, this is beautiful fiddleback. When he oils it, it's going to be just knockout. I like to work in wood. It's a very sensuous material. I love the color of the different kinds of woods that I use. This is a chair that we made some years ago. Somebody bought it at auction and brought it back to me to be oiled. Each of the boys, well, we all have our hands in everything that goes out of here. I have found that my furniture has withstood the test of time. These are chairs. We just finished a huge dining table, and these are the dining chairs that go with it. These are chair seats that I'm going to put legs on. We do everything to order. It isn't a production shop. We don't have parts all over the place that we're waiting to put together. When you're working, there's a communion between the object maker and the material that he or she is working with. And then it transcends into something much greater when you make something and someone likes it, enjoys it and all, you're paid tenfold. Yeah, that's going to be all right. There it is. Getting too old for this. I guess I should go and lie down once in a while, but I don't. I love what I do. I'm 90 and I can still work. It really started when I got out of the Army. I didn't want to work for anyone. I didn't want to be ever regimented again. So I went right to work at what I really liked, the graphic arts, Scripps College, graduate school. I was at the school one day in the courtyard, and I saw this girl clear across, and I looked at her and I thought, that's the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. She walked all across the courtyard to me and said, pardon, but could you tell me where the office is? I said, I'm not going to tell you, I'll take you. And I'd go back about twice a week, never saw her. And come September, I was at the same spot. She entered at the same spot and looked up and walked over to me and said, hello, Sammy. And 3 months later, we were married. Frida was the heart and soul of what I do. When I married Frida, I think we didn't have any furniture at all in the house, so I made furniture for her. I made it out of dunnage that I found along the railroad track. And a magazine heard about it and sent a photographer out, and I was published in a national magazine, and people started writing to me. So on the strength of that, I quit my job and started making furniture. She became my partner in more ways than one. She was sort of my protector. If it hadn't been for her, I think I would have quit a long time ago. But she said, we can do it, and so we did it together. Well, this is the first chair I ever made, and I liked it. I thought it was very simple and all, and I'd gotten it a little bit known, and I entered this chair in the show, the Los Angeles Art Museum, and it was rejected. And I got a slip. I can always remember Frida at the sink washing dishes, and she said, any good mail? And I said, no, look at this. And she read it, and it was a rejection slip. And I thought she'd throw her arms around me and tell me that they didn't know what they were doing. And she calmly put it down, turned away, kept washing dishes, and said, Sam, rejection is good for the ego. And I never forgot it. I never, ever forgot that. I didn't know anything about the craft movement at all. I just started working, and then one day I received a letter from the Craft Council and invited me to show a piece. The first conference that we had was at Asilomar. There were a lot of craftsmen like Bob Stocksdale and Art Carpenter and Morton Eschrick, Walker Weed and all. And there were about 4 of us on the panel. And they were challenging us, I know they were, and they said, making a piece of furniture takes weeks, months to make, where you design it and the factory can turn them out by the dozens, and that type of talk. Or what makes you think you can make a living at what you're doing? Well, you know, those are kind of hard questions, because you don't know if you're going to be able to make a living. All of us in the panel just sat there like dummies, and I finally spoke up and I said, you know, as for me, if Charles Eames wants to design plastic bowls to sell by the thousands, I think it's his privilege. But as for me, I'd rather work the way I'm working. I can't produce very much, but I get the pleasure of making the piece. I get the pleasure of meeting the people. And I said, I'm going to continue that way. Well, after it was over, Wart Neshrick, who was a real, dogmatic kind of a guy, said, young man, come here. And I went over to him and I thought, oh hell, he's going to bawl me out about something. He said, I heard what you said, and don't you ever change. And I haven't.
I'm not going to be able to explain this with the machine running, but I think watching closely, I have to look at this one line here, I'll have to look at the bandsaw, and you'll see what I mean. It'll only take me just a few minutes to do. Now this is just a rough cut. You see here how it looks. Then I finish it up with a rasp, and that's the iron.
I'm self-taught. Well, I was a graphic artist, but I didn't have any training. I went to work right out of high school. Then I met Frida at Scripps, and she was there for MFA, and she married me instead. And we were both flat broke, didn't have furniture or anything, so I made furniture out of dunnage. And somebody saw it and liked it, and they did an article for a magazine, and it took off. But it was just all word of mouth. People saw what I did, and I was invited to different exhibits, and then different museums started collecting my work.
In 1972, the Smithsonian Institution opened its Renwick Gallery. And the Renwick Gallery is dedicated to exhibiting and interpreting contemporary American crafts. And the very first show that it had was something called Wooden Works. It was a 5-man show. One of the 5 people, Sam Maloof. So from the very opening of the opportunity to show Maloof works, the Smithsonian chose it. 2001, I had an opportunity to follow that up with a one-man show about Maloof, the only one that had ever been done, which showed him from the very earliest years up to the very latest.
If it hadn't been for Frida, I would never have done this. It was her faith in what I could do that sustained me. She was the heart and soul of what I do. She still is, really.
I think he would tell you that he wanted to give up several times along the way, but she kept him on course.
She was just a wonderful lady, and she very much loved Sam and was there for him all the time.
The greatest tragedy in my life was when Peter went away. And it was awful hard. It was very, very difficult, but I kept working. I just knew that I had to straighten out, and because Frida would want it that way. I made her casket. The four of us, I think, were crying the whole time we were building it. And it was the most beautiful thing I've ever made. And she's buried on a little mound here. I'll be buried next to her, and I do want to be buried in a pine box and with boots and Levi's and a white t-shirt that I had on when I first met her. And that's the way it'll be.
It was a very difficult time for Sam, because without Frida, it seemed that he was going to be incapable of focusing and being able to get back to work. And then something really rather remarkable came about. He began to go out with a woman who lived not far away, and who had been one of his very first clients.
I think probably the thing that appeals to him, to me about him, the very most, is his twinkly eyes. When he's so full of enthusiasm and he's telling a story and those eyes just dance.
I had done furniture for her when she was about 23, 24, and we remained friends. We didn't see each other very often.
It just happened that we'd see each other every once in a while. He had a birthday party, I came to that.
She came to my lecture, and she held my hand, I recall, and I thought, well, gee, that was nice.
They had a show here of Mexican folk art, and I came with my son.
And I thought, whew, she sure picks him young. I mean, he looked like he was about 40 years old, 30 years old, and it turned out to be her son.
About a week later, my son called me and he says, "Mom, I've been thinking." He says, "I think you should date Sam Maloof." And I said, "Well, why would you say that?" And he said, "Well, he's cool." Oh, the heart is a resilient thing, recovers from most anything. If given love and care and healing time, you can mangle, mistreat, and abuse it, but you can never really lose it. When the right man comes along, it'll work just fine.
She sang that at our wedding after we got married, and everybody just roared, and I did too. This is the old house here, and I built the house over a period of about 25 years, and Frida and I lived in it for over 50 years.
The home functioned as his showroom. He didn't have a big downtown gallery. He didn't have somebody who was marketing his materials. He was a small shop owner. His wife was a business manager. And if you wanted to come and order a piece of Maloof furniture, you could come up, knock on the door, Frida would let you in, and you begin to look at how the Maloofs used their Maloof furniture. And then it became something to which you really wanted to go. In the 1960s, era of hippies, when the whole woodworking movement really began to have a kind of a critical mass of people who really wanted to work with their hands, people would drive for miles. Sometimes they would fly from London, turn up on his doorstep, knock on the door, and say, "I've heard so much about this place, can I see it?"
Sam's house sat about right on the edge of that freeway. The whole site was 6.5 acres. It was lemon grove. There were 2 houses that sat on the site with a guest house. Sam had made some furniture for me, and in sitting down with him one day, he pulled out a map and said there are plans to build a freeway that would take half my property. and come right up to the house.
They thought they could go under us, and it would cost $75 million, and we'd be on top of the freeway. And I said no, and then they said, well, we'll go around you and underground and then put the grove back in. And I said, no, I just don't want to do that.
I got a consultant named Knox Mellon, who was the head of the State Historic Preservation Office, and we began to then negotiate with the agencies. After a significant amount of stonewalling, they acknowledged that this was a site that was eligible for the National Register of Historic Places.
The state was then forced to take it, rebuild it, make it absolutely as accurate a representation of where it had been, but in a different environment.
When they moved the old house, I'm surprised that the people that moved it were experts, and it went back together like a crossword puzzle. Well, I haven't changed anything. This is the way it was, and all. And
The house is open to the public. The gardens are open to the public. And underlying it all is this mission to encourage arts and crafts and to help people understand the value and the specialness of handcrafted things. And so it's a wonderful place, wonderful use for all of the years that Sam and Frida supported artists. And so they're continuing to do that through this foundation.
we have lifetime occupancy of the houses and the shop. And after I'm gone, Beverly has full-time occupancy, and the shop has full-time occupancy. And so what I've done is given each of them, I've given my wife a sixth, I've given Roz a sixth, I've given my son a sixth, and each of the boys a sixth, so that after I'm gone, they'll own the business lock, stock, and barrel.
I'm very grateful for it, and I'm grateful that he hired me and that it's lasted so long. And to be able to continue that, that really means a lot to me. It really does. I even got a tattoo with the Maloof insignia. It's just kind of a tribute piece. So
Where is it?
It's on the back of my leg. I'm hoping that he'll sign it for me eventually.
I decided who I'm going to buy a Porsche, so I bought a little Boxster.
He bought that for his 85th birthday, and he enjoys that so much. He gets so much pleasure out of it. It's a wonderful car. He's a great driver. I never worry about him at all.
I love it. I just love it. And I've had it up to 135, I think, out in the middle of nowhere, but that was awful fast.
He's 88 now. He still works with us every day, and it's just amazing. He's a huge inspiration. I hope to be going at that age. I think he's an inspiration to a lot of young woodworkers. Just the fact that he's made a living by doing what he's loved. I don't think too many people are able to do that or say that.
I find that it doesn't work. I can say I retired 55 years ago.
Well, people have asked me about my approach to design. Having been a graphic artist, I draw very, very well. And I make little sketches, just doodling around, even talking on the phone. But on my chairs, I have a mental drawing of what I want to do, and I conceive the chair as I'm making it. I can change a little bit, and this is where I've always felt the designer and the maker should be one and the same. I could give someone a very good drawing to work from, and they would work exactly as the drawing stated, but it might turn out well, it may not. But if I make the piece and it would say 1.25 inches, and I thought 1 1/8 inches looked better, I could do it, but the artisan that was doing it wouldn't do it. And but a lot of the things, I have thousands of metal drawings in my head right now of things